Hello world, I am Sunset801 and welcome to my end of 2020 special. And I think we can all agree that 2020 has not been the best year for a multitude of reasons, but looking back, 2020 was actually a very productive year for me. I transitioned between multiple jobs, paid off my car, and my channel had seen massive growth, which includes reaching my goal of having over 100 subscribers by December. This year, I really buckled down and put a lot of effort into revitalizing this channel, so as a sort of year-end review of all that I've done, I'm going to talk about my top 10 drift builds. Let's begin. Number 10 is the Toyota Supra. A fan favorite in general, the Toyota Supra video was the first time I was introduced to using a Supra in Forza Horizon 4. Now, I had one in Forza Horizon 3, but never really paid much attention to it. Anyway, this video is special because it was the first video I made in 2020 after my hiatus, quote-unquote, that started in 2019. It was after, I believe, the Jaguar F-Pace video, which I believe have since privated or even deleted because of the quality of the video. But regardless, this Toyota Supra video was the first video to feature music that I created myself. And while clearly it's not my best build that I've ever done, it was still memorable to me, being one that made me feel like I could be a YouTuber. Number 9 is the Lamborghini Huracan. This video was really fun to make because it was the first Lambo drift build I have ever done. I remember I wanted to do something crazy that not many people would expect, especially in a world of JDM missiles, Ella-swapped BMWs, and American muscle burnout machines. And when I found out that there were real-life drift Lamborghinis, I figured I'd give it a shot. And overall, it was a very satisfying experience, and it will always be a car that I will forever remember. Number 8 is the Nissan R35 GTR. Now, I think many of you would have expected this car to be higher on the list, but to tell you the truth, I really only built this car for views. Yes, the GTR is one of my all-time favorite cars, but I don't think it's my best drift build. And that's not to say that I don't like this build. I actually think both cars that I made look really good and they drift really well. And yes, I say both cars because the original video featuring the R35 was, let's just say, hard to follow. That video was made during the speed build period where I fast forwarded the build because I thought that's what I was supposed to do to make the video more interesting. And I have a feeling that most of the views on that video were from people rewatching and trying to follow along. And since then, it's actually taught me a good lesson. But regardless, it's not a bad build, especially with the wide body kit that's on there. Number 7 is the Volkswagen Bug. And again, we have a vehicle that has two versions, only this time, the car I found to be much more enjoyable. I don't know of any real-life drift Beetles, but this was the first car that I thought was crazy enough to be a fun build. Who knew that sticking a Porsche engine in a Bug would be so fun? I remember when I first started building Volkswagen Bugs, I was laughing my ass off because I'm imagining Herbie from Herbie Fully Loaded sliding around with actual JDM cars. Just imagine that. Number 6 is the Pontiac Trans Am. I titled this car as the Knight Rider car, as it reminded me of the old TV show. And it doesn't really look like the movie car, but it sure as hell looks a lot meaner. Now, when I was filming the shots for the cinematic, I wasn't really looking for any special effects like the sun glares, but while I was editing the video, I was shocked to find out how good they actually were. I normally will pick a random spot to do the cinematics, and it seemed that I chose my spot well. The car itself, I think, isn't as good to drive as I was hoping, but damn does it look good. And the epic background music sure helped a lot too. Number 5 is the Acura NSX, and it doesn't seem like much, being a shade of robin egg blue with a weird pinkish flare, but this mid-engine sports car surprised me a lot by becoming my highest scoring build. The sad part about it is that the Acura NSX seems so forgettable and understated. It's not that it's bad or it drives alright. Mid-engine cars I find aren't that easy to drift compared to other cars, but the NSX felt good. It had just enough power to keep those wheels spinning forever and rack up lots of points. Very few cars can even come close to that score. Number 4 is another from Volkswagen, but this time it's the Volkswagen Bus, or Deluxe, or Volkswagen Van. I don't know, whatever the heck Forza decide to call it. This car was so fun to build because it set me on a path to build really wacky but surprisingly good drift builds. I mean, who would drift a Volkswagen Bus? Why, me, of course. It looks surprisingly good, especially with the matte blue and matte black paint job. It was built with the same philosophy as the Volkswagen Bug, and it works. Yet even with all the fun I had making that video, I'm disappointed. Not because of the build, but because hardly anyone watched it. Compared to something like the 370Z, Miata, or even the VW Bug, the video has just over 30 views, as of recording this. I would have thought people would want to see something as wacky as this. Number 3 is the Bentley 8-liter, and this has to be the pinnacle of wacky. 1500 horsepower, in what was commented as a coffin on wheels. This was the most unconventional, most powerful, and most ridiculous drift build I have ever made. What makes it even crazier is that it works. It does take a bit of getting used to because it feels like it's as big as the Volvo Iron Knight, but swings harder than a wrecking ball. If gangsters had a drift car, this might be it. Number 2 is the Ford Mustang GT, the car I affectionately call the Sunset801. This is my personal favorite car to drift. It handles great, has just the right amount of power, and sure as hell looks beautiful. Sure, it might look like I copied the Stradman's homework with Burlacker's car, but this car just feels so right. This car was also the beginning of my car cinematics. I thought placing them at the beginning of each build would work, but eventually I just ended up putting them in the middle after completing the build. I love Mustangs, so it might seem like I'm a bit biased, which I am, but keep in mind, this car isn't number 1. And finally, at number 1, we have the S15. This is the car that started it all. The S15 was the first drift build I ever posted on my channel. I actually started drifting in Forza Horizon 3, and the S15 was one of the first cars I was able to really get my hands on and get a feel for. It handled good, it accelerated good, and looked good. The paint job wasn't the most eye-catching, being like a matte purple with multicolored purple and green wheels, but heck, it was mine, and it felt right. So, when Forza Horizon 4 dropped, and I saw how cheap the car was to buy, of course I had to get one. And another. And another. And another. The first S15 drift build was also the first video to feature my own music. Now, I know I mentioned that in the Toyota Supra entry, but this song I had made freshman year of high school, which, as of recording this video, would have been, at least 10 years ago. The song itself was made using pre-made melodies and beats on GarageBand. And that video gave me the desire to continue to make drift builds. And when I hit 50 subscribers, I figured it was time to redo the original drift build to make it something even better. And then the same thing happened when I hit 100 subscribers. That car was fun because it was the best S15 I've made, and I built it live. So it's only fair that I give this car number 1 because I owe it for essentially starting my channel to become what it is now. And with that, those are my top 10 drift builds that I have created. I would also like to announce a few honorable mentions. The 370Z, or Red Betty, is my second highest viewed video. It was a really simple build that worked out very well and got lots of fanfare. The 350Z is also in a similar situation, but it's special to me being another of my favorite cars and being my 25th build special. And last is every single drift build that was part of the speed build era of my channel. Those videos have since been sent to private or have been deleted because of the bad quality video production or the bad quality build. These videos taught me how to drift and make cars that can drift. I have plans to redo them all, some of which I've already done, but most importantly, they are my inspiration to create and do better. And so, that concludes my top 10 drift builds. I sincerely hope you all enjoyed this video. 2020 has been one hell of a mess, but for me, it was actually quite productive and game-changing. I suspect 2021 will be a much better year, and I'm looking forward to growing this channel and bringing even more builds and live streams. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below if you haven't already. I am Sunset801, and I will see you next time.